It's WG, bring your SMB. We have all these beautiful artifacts and you obviously want to use them to the best of your ability. So that's what this video is here for. You're going to get a in-depth guide about every single artifact, who to use it on and in which situation, as well as also a preliminary deduction of which of these artifacts you should level up first. But that is going to be towards the end. As usual, this video is going to be pretty long, so you have time steps if you just want to jump to specific artifacts. And if you can, a like, subscription or comment would be greatly appreciated, because making these dedicated assets, it took me way too long. As usual, let's get straight into it with the first artifact, Philosopher's Stone. This is the level 1 talent with the ability to increase the crit rate and also increase that bonus further the higher you level it. Now, in general, you can use this artifact on every single DPS, and it is also the first artifact you get, so just throw it on whoever you have on your team, whoever deals damage, right? You can see we have Tihati, Tinor, Otavia, Pavana, Piera, Ressa, Geraint, Selena, Thibault, Triss, Van Helsing, Agaris, August, Kane, Cecia, DeCarlo, Darcius, Geraint, Hati, Ayagaris, Joanne, Lamia, Lamine, Mass, and Nicole. So, that is pretty straightforward. But what isn't as straightforward is the second part, and that is the level 5 artifact. So if we take a look at it right here, we have the bonus, which says upon a crit hit, fires 4 bullets at the target, dealing 300% attack magic damage with a cooldown of 6 seconds. So what that means is, the higher the natural crit, or the higher the crit of your character, or the higher the crit of the stage, the better this artifact, because preferably you want to be able to hit as many crits as possible to make sure that you can abuse this cooldown and every 6 seconds get the extra magic damage. So 3 characters come to mind instantly. That's number 1, Ressa, because she can get herself to up to 90% crit rate through her talent as well as also through her special. Then Lamia, because she guarantees a crit hit no matter what, as long as she procs her special. So either every 2 basic attacks or during the ultimate, she guarantees a crit hit with her blood servant thingies. And then Thibault, because Thibault naturally makes enemies have a 40% higher crit chance, so that they take 40% more crit hits. You know what I mean, right? Crit resist reduction. And then also other characters that fall into this category are, for example, Van Helsing, but Van Helsing just has a better artifact, you see why, but he does also gain natural crit. Geraint, because he'll be able to give himself a lot of attack speed, meaning he'll be able to get it off a lot of attacks. Then Transcendent Noah, because Transcendent Noah, he just shoots a bunch, his summons shoot a bunch, and he also has in his ultimate a whole bunch of attacks after he sacrifices his summons. And then Cecia, because Cecia just shoots a lot of attacks. So at least when it comes to getting the artifact to level 5, those are most likely going to be the prime targets, but this obviously works on everyone. So once more, as a brief refresher, this thing is super general. It's your standard DPS artifact and you just throw it on whatever you need. Next up, we have the Silver Shadow Chronometer. Silver Shadow Chronometer, let's talk about the effect. When a summon dies or disappears, restores 10% max HP. So far, so good. That leaves us with 4 characters, but realistically only 1. So Bella, Noah, Piera, and Clive are currently the only characters in the game. Okay, you could also say Spectral Geraint, but okay, sure. But those are the only ones that really summon something that can then disappear, but there's only one that really reliably summons them at enough of a frequency and also has them die because of them being frontline units that it really makes sense, and that is Bella. Bella summons these summons every 8 seconds. This artifact procs every 10 seconds. So Bella is the perfect choice for this artifact. But the interesting part about this artifact comes right here. And that is, if you read through the effect, both the level 1 and the level 5 effect do not state that the character that uses this artifact has to be the one summoning. And that is why this is so interesting. So if you have a Bella on your team, you can put your second Silver Shadow Chronometer on any of these characters. And we've already tested it and it is confirmed for the first effect. For example, if you have a Bella on your team and a Starry-Eyed Iona with a Silver Shadow Chronometer, every time a summon of Bella dies, Bella and Starry-Eyed Iona recover HP, right? So this artifact works no matter if it's the unit or the summons from another unit. The same is most likely going to be true for the level 5 artifact. I haven't tested it, but it has the same wording, which means that when a summon appears, recovers 1 blood soul, can only trigger once every 20 seconds. What we still need to see is if the cooldown is shared between same instances of an artifact, but I doubt it. So what we're most likely going to be looking at is Bella summoning 2 summons. As soon as one of her summons die, you recover 2 blood souls, because you have it once on Bella and then, for example, once on a Stereite or once on a Jester or once on a Friedrich. But yeah, if you have a Silver Shadow lying around and you're running any healer, any tank, you can see them right here, just make sure you give it to them, because they'll be able to restore additional HP through Bella. Next up, we have the Eye of Truth. Eye of Truth basic effect, just as a reminder again, basic attack deals 20% more damage. Pretty straightforward and leaves you with these characters right here. So we have Gilrain, Van Helsing, Triss, and Joanne. The reason why we picked these 4 specific ones is because Gilrain has a talent that naturally increases his basic attacks, and he also increases his attack speed, meaning he'll do more basic attacks. Van Helsing's ultimate counts as basic attacks because he transforms his basic attacks rather than it being a separate instance, which means the artifact triggers not only during his basics but also during his ult. Triss also has her own basic attacks, and her ultimate specifically says ultimate hits count as basic attacks, which means this artifact also affects the hits of Triss. And Joanne also transforms into the electrified form, and during that electrified form, her basic attacks are also basic attacks. And then for those of you with eyes, right, you see that on July 17th, we'll be getting our next SSR, who is Lorelei, and her kit also includes the fact that during her ultimate, she transforms her basic attacks, which means she'll like enter into a similar state to a Van Helsing. Right? Which means you can already assume she's also going to work really, really well with the Eye of Truth. So the Eye of Truth is pretty simple and pretty straightforward. You shouldn't really bother putting the Eye of Truth on the character just for their basic attacks. It doesn't really work. It doesn't really end up doing anything. Rather just use the crit rate artifact instead, or even the next one, and that is Poseidon's Skull. So Poseidon's Skull, let's briefly talk about the artifact and then also the special use case. But what you need to know about Poseidon's Skull is it's your key to your DOT characters, right? Every character that has a DOT or a control effect, that is very important. It's DOT or control effect. So as long as a unit is under DOTs or controls, they take the extra 10% increased damage. So in general, you want to use it on these characters, mostly Darcias, Tihati, and Daikalo, and that is because they themselves can reliably and consistently apply a debuff which triggers this artifact. Because keep in mind, if a stun runs out, you also lose the effect of the artifact, so a 100% uptime DOT is superior to a stun for this specific buff. So that leaves you with Darcias with the bleeds, Tihati with the pestilence, and Daikalo with continuous damage taken through divination, right? But then other characters that also apply are Hati with her stun during rush and ultimate, Nicole with her bleeds during rush and ultimate, Pavana with her sleeps, Tia Amy with her stun, Triss with her stun, and induction. Very important, induction counts as a debuff that then turns into a control effect. So Triss is also really good at making sure that artifact stays active. Mass has her own ultimate damage increase taken or whatever debuff thing, which also counts as a debuff, and it has an infinite uptime. Otavia with the magic damage taken up, Selena also with stuns, Thibault, the reduced crit resistance, is also a debuff, Augustine with his stuns, and then Joanne lastly if she stuns or inflicts induction. And yeah, obviously Agaris with his burn during ultimate. Reason why Lorelei is there is because I do expect her to perform better with the Eye of Truth, even though she does apply 2 types of debuffs, which is a stacking debuff that then turns into a sleep, kind of the way that induction turns into stun. Now though, there's this special synergy for this talent, and that is Deals 10% increased damage to enemies under debuff or control effects. The important part right here is this character does not have to inflict it, which means once more, and it's also, you could say, relevant to boss fights, as long as you have a source of a debuff on your team. So think Tihati, Dalcarlo, Darcias, anybody else, every single character right here, every single DPS can use this artifact to give themselves the 1.1x multiplier on damage that obviously goes higher if you were to level this artifact. So keep that in mind. That is something that can be and will be quite useful, but it does become less important because of the fact that the level 5 talent only works on characters that specifically inflicted themselves, the same way that the crit artifact works. Now we have the Fruit of Immortality, which is with the talent when HP percentage falls below 50% for the first time, restores 4% of max HP every second for 10 seconds, giving you overall a 40% HP restore after dropping below 50%. So the choices here are quite obvious. You have Bella. The reason why Bella is so small is because she's better off just using her Silver Shadow Chronometer instead. And then we have Yggdrasil, Amy, Justice, Seth, Acapella, Aeona, Edina, Friedrich, Amy, Theophane, and Steria, Aeona, right? Any healer, any tank, you can just put it on them and they'd be getting themselves the extra HP reduction, making sure they stay alive, because you don't want a DPS artifact on them. They don't do DPS anyway. Besides, I guess you could say TR Amy. She does hit kind of hard. And then now the special effect, which only really comes into place once you get this artifact to level 5, is when you're targeted by 3 or more enemies, reduces all damage taken by 15%, which naturally works best on tanks, because tanks are the ones you want to be blocking stuff with. Tanks are the ones in the front line. So this artifact naturally has greater synergy with tanks. And if you were wondering about the healing artifact, that artifact is the 6th one, and I think either unlock it only with the next update or at like some really late point, like chapter 16, whatever. So that one is like dedicated to just healers. So yeah, these have been all the artifacts, who to use it on in which situation. Now let's talk about the artifact upgrades. So now for artifact upgrading, you have the ability to increase how many characters can wear it. You can level up the talent 1, you can level up the talent 2, and also the way this whole thing works is by using these blueprints. These blueprints do increase in quantity needed per upgrade, but every single artifact is going to naturally go to level 2 through Dutchman's Revenge. Then going from level 2 to 3 is also 10, going from 3 to level 4 is going to cost you 30, and going from level 4 to level 5 to unlock the second talent is also going to cost you 40, which means overall you need 70 specific blueprints to unlock the level 5 talent of an artifact. Now, how do you actually unlock those? Where do you get the resources? Resource number 1 is going to be clan sign in, because you get 50 guild coins and then 100 guild coins on day 7 every day. Resource number 2 is making sure you like a member each day, because that nets you an additional 50 guild coins. So you can then use your guild coins down here in the guild shop to spend them on the Philosopher's Stone or whatever blueprint you decide on. I obviously give you some ideas. And then Clan Hunt. Clan Hunt will arrive on the 19th, but we're not yet sure if you're going to get more clan coins, but it just makes sense, right? It just makes sense that the Clan Hunt would give you more coins. So in just a week, we'll have another source of clan coins. Outside of that, we then also have the Prophecy game mode. The Prophecy game mode yields you 15 blueprints every single time it comes back through the first clear reward. So you'll have 15 blueprints you can choose, and then on the daily you'll be able to get 4 blueprints, but they are going to be randomly split between all 6 artifacts at equal chances. So that is how you can get these blueprints, and this is how then, for example, the selector looks like. Now, it's still not 100%, but I'll be giving you my order on which artifacts to upgrade first, and also the reasons why. So my first artifact to level 5 would have to be the Philosopher's Stone, because it's the most broadly applicable, it's the easiest to use, and it just works on everybody. So you increase the crit rate, you give to everyone on 3, and then on 5 you increase the or you get this effect to just naturally increase your damage. And there is ways to increase your crit rate to make sure even characters without crit rate can trigger this reliably. So this would be the number 1 pick. Number 2 pick should probably go to the Silver Shadow Chronometer, just because we all know how important Blood Souls are, and that's also one of the reasons why Acapella is ranked so high. So Silver Shadow Chronometer should probably turn out to be the number 2 choice. And then choice number 3, the 3 is kind of a bit, I'm not quite sure, right? It's either between the Poseidons Skull, with when applying a controller debuff effect deals extra damage. The same is true, you could also do Poseidons Skull on 2 or even on 1 if you have a Transcendent Hearty and you just really like using her. Also upgrading this percentage-based artifact or percentage-based stat is quite good. So Poseidons Skull on 3, and then we have the Tribunal with, I guess, a weaker-ish effect, and that is a basic attack has the chance of granting you attack speed up by 25%, but yeah, does not stack with effects of the same type, so it does not stack with attack speed up minor, but what it does stack with is, for example, the characters giving them a buff themselves. So even though it says doesn't stack, it just means it does not stack with a minor buff, but for example, something like a Van Helsing giving him attack speed through Swift Hunt, it does stack with it. So Swift Hunt is going to give him 50%, and then he's going to get an additional 25 from the artifact, making it 75% total. So the difference or the deciding factor between judgments between the Tribunal and between Eye of Truth and Poseidon's Skull is just which characters are going to be more relevant, right? Is it going to be more relevant to have a debuff dealing character that has damage, or is it more relevant to use basic attack characters? Because currently there's only 4/5 characters that do it. Van Helsing is super relevant, but the others aren't nearly as prevalent everywhere else. So that's kind of the decision between Eye of Truth and then Poseidon's Skull. And also on another note, why I ranked this so highly, look at this. 300% at a 6-second cooldown, while the Poseidon's Skull has 325, so higher, but at almost double the cooldown. Then Fruit of Immortality is going to be your number 5 choice, because you do want this damage taken reduction, but I think the other ones have more prevalence, because having something offensive is always preferable to something defensive. And then lastly, we have the last artifact, the Nightingale, where not only do you get extra healing, but you can also then generate that extra healing every 12 seconds. But it is a healer artifact, so I don't put too much value on that. So yeah, that is what you need to know about artifact upgrading, everything else about artifacts. And yeah, I hope you learned something. And as usual, we see each other in the next one. Peace.